I'll write that down somewhere. I'll write that. I like you. Meat, money, energy,
It's the meat.
attention, and
If
time.
see, if your wife is getting the best part of your meat, then you are the best husband.
Okay.
If your parents
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Plus 1234 podcast. I'm your host, Mustapha Zachary, and alongside
Duniya,
David.
Well, thank you for tuning in. For our first episode, we did a brief introduction about what to expect from the podcast and what we are also planning on giving you guys. Speaking about our experiences as immigrants in the US and immigrants in general, but more specific to the African immigrant experience. And so with this podcast, we're taking a step further to elaborate on the topics. And one of the most important things that I have noticed from an immigration perspective is maintaining non-romantic relationships. So, for example, like relationship with your friends, relationship with your family, relationship with your siblings, relationship with your business partners that you had in Nigeria before moving. So managing all those relationships can be very, very difficult. And on social media today, there's a huge emphasis on romantic relationships. Everybody wants love. Everybody's looking for love, but love does not exist in just one place in a significant order. Love exists with your family, with your friends. And so those are like relationships that end up giving us fulfillment in life. And they are very, very important to maintain as we proceed with our various ambitions. So, not to give too long of a monologue, let's just jump right into it. So, I'll go first. My own personal experience was when I moved to the US, the most important thing was the time difference, managing the time difference. So, I live in northeast region, so the time difference between Massachusetts and Nigeria is 5 to 6 hours, depending on the daylight savings situation. So usually, like during the summer, the time difference is 5 hours, and during the winter, the time difference increases to 6 hours, and that's what we expect every year. So usually, when you're starting your day, people in Nigeria, even before you start your day, like as early as 4 a.m., if there's a 6 hour difference, it's already 10 a.m. in Nigeria, and people have already started going about their day. And sometimes people call me at like 4 a.m. without knowledge of like the time difference. And also when you're going to bed at night, like for example, when you come back from work, by 4 p.m., it's already 10 p.m. in Nigeria, and people are already going to bed, and you can't catch up with people except they stay up late. So maintaining relationships can be difficult. So I'll turn over to Duniya. Tell us some of your experiences maintaining non-romantic relationships as a result of your immigration to the US.
well, first of all, non-romantic relationship can come in many forms. That's including friendship, family relationship, professional relationship, and community connections. And my first relationship issues I had with my family was the same with yours. To be honest, it was the time difference. My friends as well, we had to communicate differently because we sleep at different time and we wake up different times. So personally, I had to adjust. It was all about adjusting every day, um, knowing when to call, and in fact, to the details of how long you should even stay on the phone with them because you usually have like you know places to be and things to do. So the time difference was a huge factor for me in terms
Okay.
of family relationship.
Okay, let's move over to David. Like tell us some of your experiences.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of has the same experience. When you like, um, it sets in when you don't speak to your parents as often as you used to do before. Like for me, for example, like I used to stay with my parents like in their house, and I'm used to like seeing them every day. They're always around me. So coming here, like it has been crazy. Like I speak to my parents here once a week now. Like before, like you see them every day. Now it's once a week, and you have to like kind of get used to that somehow. And it's not just because you don't like your parents. That's why like when you're calling them, like there are other things that take your time, and before you know, like you be like, oh, I haven't called my parents this week. I need to speak to my parents, and like you need to make time for things like that. And sometimes it might be very hard to do that. So because you have like work and other like obligations, so
Yeah.
it is very very hard. And trust me, like the last time I saw my parents, the last time I was in Nigeria was 2017. I haven't been back to Nigeria since then. So it's time flies by. Like time goes by very fast, and is to maintain communications with your loved ones back home. Like it's an effort you have to put in. Like it must be in your calendar. Oh, call my mom, call my dad, call my friends today.
Exactly.
'Cause
Exactly.
if you don't make it if you
Your
don't
schedule.
make it mandatory for yourself, like
Yeah.
time is it's not going to be good for you. Like you are just going to not call anybody, because trust me, like time goes by and the day goes by, and you, like as you said, like you wake up in the morning, you come back from work 4 p.m., 5 p.m. in Nigeria, it's already 10 p.m. So you can't really do much. Just I'll call them tomorrow morning. Same thing tomorrow morning, Monday to Friday, you go to work. Weekends you want to rest or
Yeah.
you sleep, you wake up in the let's say like in the 10 a.m. like maybe
Yeah, and
plan.
it's
So
also especially difficult because like if you're like somebody that your parent always rely on for technology, like for our generation, for our parent generation, technology is the Achilles heel. Like
what's
my
up?
dad, every time he's always like, "Can you help me find my password to my email? Can you help me find my password to my iCloud?" And
Like
I'm
Facebook.
always saving his passwords for him. So usually sometimes he needs it like immediately, and he's trying to call me while I'm at work or I'm doing something, and he can't get access to me as often as he used to while I was in Nigeria. And then that creates like a gap because like sometimes I might not be able to get back to him for like 2 3 days. And when I get back to him, be like, "Oh, I called you a couple of days ago. I needed something. You didn't get back to me." And it took some adjusting on both sides to kind of like find a common ground with respect to like um, needing someone's attention at a specific given time. I mean, with romantic relationships, it's easy. You always know you're gonna call your girlfriend or your wife or your significant other. But when it comes to like non-romantic relationships, a lot of times it doesn't happen as organically as it does with romantic relationships.
So we can say that non-romantic relationships evolve when we migrate, right?
Yeah.
Like as an immigrant, like we do think about, what will be of our relationship with people we love. I think most of the time,
Yeah.
because you spend all your life with your family. In my own case, I was at this point where I was like, due to just let me get out of this place. They've seen me too much. But then when I think about my own girlfriend, that's my own situation, or people I have to, I feel like, I'm going to meet this person. But then when you cross over, after a while, you start missing your parents or your
Yeah.
family,
Scarcity brings value.
and then you be like, wow,
Yeah, scarcity brings value because, like, a lot of time you see it from the perspective of like, if I leave, they'll miss me. But you don't also realize that you two are also going to miss them when you leave. So it's like a two-way street, like that we don't often tend to consider anytime we're thinking of immigration.
Yeah. So, and there are things that you don't consider in terms of communicating with somebody you wake up to every morning. Good morning, mommy. Good morning, daddy.
Yeah,
Because your communication is like so personal.
yeah,
But then once you travel or once you migrate somewhere, you have to consider that your expectations will change. both ways.
And also like, David, you want to say something?
No, keep going.
And also like maintaining those non-romantic relationships with people that also idolize you. Let's say you have like cousins that you're way older than, and they have watched your life go from like primary school to secondary school or high school or to higher institution, and your parents always use you as an example or like a model for them, and then they put you on this pedestal, and oftentimes they send you a message on like WhatsApp or Instagram, and you don't respond on time. Like, they always tend to read it the wrong way because they don't understand that now that you've moved to the US, it's a time difference, and then you have so many commitments to attend to. Like, they don't have like an easy access that they usually used to have to you. Something similar to your parents, but these are people that idolize it. Just like people that idolize celebrities.
I think the reaction, right, is also based on how the relationship is prior to when you left, right?
Yeah.
So like, you have a cousin who is like younger, he's still in maybe secondary school or coming up. Usually, if it's a cousin that respects you, like, you'll be like, I don't know when Uncle David will be free.
Yeah.
Sometimes he might message you with genuine, but maybe you won't answer. And because at that point and stage he is, you'll be like, maybe Uncle David don't have time. Don't have time. So it depends on the relationship before. So it's also important to kind of know your stand with somebody. You might have an uncle that, because you are his nephew or whatever, he just feels like you're obligated to call him, to be the one to call him and say hello, right?
Yeah.
Based on our culture.
Entitlement.
Entitlement. Yeah. Like, I'm not the one to be calling you.
Yeah.
You should be the one checking. Mm-hmm. So, and also, if they make the effort to check on you, and unfortunately, that will be the day you are
busy.
You are busy.
Something.
They'll just, it will just create a whole story that was not there before.
Yeah, like a gap in a relationship leads to assumptions. So, for example, like, let's say you have a friend and they text you for a favor, and right around when they text you, you're in the middle of something. Let's say you are on your way to work, or you're just closing from work.
That happened to you before? Like,
yeah, they requested for something, and then you open the message, you're trying to read the message. And then along the line, a lot of things happen because, like, you are living in two different time zones. Maybe the person is like relaxing, about to sleep on their bed at night, and you are just closing from work in the middle of something, about to go about your day post work. And then you try to respond, and something comes up, you can't get to respond at that time, and then you forget about it. Meanwhile, the other person at the other side, laying on their bed about to sleep, will be like, he just read my message. I saw he just read my message. He didn't respond, so he left me on read. So because I asked for a favor, now he's leaving me on read. This is not how it used to be before. This, that, and you get their feelings hurt without understanding that it's a whole different situation and a whole different scenario. And then they have this assumption. And unfortunately, if you don't remember to reach out to them, because it happens, it's natural, we're human, we tend to forget from time to time. Then it starts to, they start building things in their mind, notions in their mind that, oh, this person wasn't like this before they moved to the US. Now they have gone to the US, they have changed, they don't respond to messages anymore, they are carrying shoulders. It's like perspectives tend to be very, very different if you can just take a step back and assess the entire situation.
Let's imagine this podcast was 50 years ago, whatever time, when we had no cell phones, where the mode of communication, the best form was to write to somebody. Funny, right?
Yeah, it's funny when you think of it.
But when you think about it, back in the 80s, 70s, we had people who had family back in Nigeria and they were living abroad.
Yeah.
And they just had to maintain their relationship by writing. Yep. But now technology has given us that privilege that we were not taught, to be honest. Like, I feel maybe growing up, we're supposed to be taught certain things like communication in the modern age. you know.
No, like
But we are the generation that grew up with technology, so definitely we are the
So now,
pioneers.
now, I feel what we're doing, right, is trying to navigate the pathway of communicating with people who are consider family, friends, and
Close
close
associates.
associates as immigrants, because they are very important to us, you know. And if you consider them as the past, you will treat them differently. If you consider them as being part of your present and your future, I think it also um, goes into the way you react to them and communicate with them. So times are changing. Sometimes you have to set clear boundaries as well,
Yeah.
because you're closer to them. I think the need to set boundaries will not be there. Your focus as well in that relationship with your friend, because if you're in a different time zone, for example, or different location, your perspective or your pursuits may be different. For example, I do have friends that we do talk about just soccer,
Yeah.
and we probably did it more then because midweek we go play soccer together.
Yeah. In close proximity
Yeah,
too.
close proximity. So I don't want to leave all that, but I have to limit it, because might probably talk during the game, might probably just text during that game when the euphoria is there. Oh, they don't score you, they don't score you, like that. And, that would be a way of keeping in touch. So
Yeah.
sometimes you look for certain things, or maybe Kanye and Drake.
Yeah.
You have a friend where you guys used to rock, and Kanye and Drake decide to perform. And you just see that night you guys will talk.
Yeah.
But apart from that, because the daily life does not relate,
Yeah.
you find out that the communication is becoming very specific on certain things.
Yeah.
So um, that's what I have to say, though.
Yeah.
Because
If you're just tuning in, the topic today is maintaining non-romantic relationships as you immigrate to the US or any part of the world in general where there's like a time difference and changing time zone. David, do you have anything?
I mean, you guys are pretty much saying everything. And on the boundaries part, I think I agree with the boundaries, because there are times when, for example, a family member will keep texting me on WhatsApp every time, keep bugging me. I need money for this, I need money for that. I'm like, calm down, I will send you the money. I'm at work right now, but I'm gonna. And she keeps calling me every time, and it gets annoying. So I think I blocked her. I blocked her.
That becomes the last resort because you need some peace.
I'm at work. Stop calling me.
yeah,
And another thing is that
Just hold on.
because of the way the society is structured, like in Nigeria compared to here, there's significant change in the way a society is operated. So in Nigeria now, for example, you pay your rent annually. In the US, you pay your rent monthly. So once you pay your rent once in Nigeria, you forget about it until the next year. But in the US, let's say you pay $1,000 for rent, you have to pay $1,000 every month.
Question.
And then if somebody,
Question. Where is the rent $1,000 in America?
I don't know, right? Maybe if you live somewhere like in Mississippi,
You can
but
Alabama.
Yo, it doesn't even
Not in the
matter.
notice.
but
It's reoccurring. So
my point is that you have an additional set of responsibilities every month that you probably didn't have in Nigeria, and then you have expectations that have increased as well because you've moved to the US. So somebody needs money and they text you that they need because some people can be very, very audacious. They'll ask you, I need $500. They'll even put a price on it that you need to send. I need $500. It's just going to fall from the sky. So let's say that month you have to pay your rent $1,000. And then you have to something happens to your car and then you have to fix your car. You spend another $1,000 on that. You have to pay for your insurance, your car insurance. You have to pay for electricity bill, phone bill, Wi-Fi. All these bills that tend to accumulate.
Yeah, small bills, but when you
Yeah,
have
they accumulate.
a lot of money.
And people don't think maybe you also pay for Netflix, so like maybe you can have like 8 friends on your Netflix that use your Netflix, and you're the one paying for it. Like all these things accumulate. And how much do you earn in a month? Let's say you earn $5,000 a month, and then you're paying all these things that cost thousands of dollars, hundreds
5,000
of
minus
dollars.
taxes is like 3.5.
Exactly, your taxes too. They're going to take taxes out of it. So it's crazy. There's a lot of expectations, and if you don't meet those expectations, a lot of your relationships start to frame a little bit. They start to crack. You see cracks in them. And also another thing I want to talk about is like sometimes there's this complex as soon as they move to the US. People just develop naturally this complex that
Yep.
for some reason they have it in the back of their minds that you automatically think he's better than me now because he has moved to the US. And then by themselves they start to fracture the relationship. Like you probably try to reach out to them and text them, they don't respond. Or even when you talk to them, they don't have the same energy they used to have. Like you just know that this relationship is not like it has become foreign. And then at some point, one person has to let it go. So these are some of the nuances that happen like once you immigrate, uh, and once you consider like trying to maintain non-romantic relationships. Even with siblings too, if like an entire family does not immigrate at the same time, let's say some people go first or a person leaves first, like there's always this strain in the relationship dynamics. Like I gave an example like with our parents now, when they try to reach us like immediately for an immediate fix of a problem that they need, and immediate fix for a problem that they need fixed, or immediate fix for a problem that they need addressing, and then they can't get you on the phone, and then they will have to find alternative means and create a new system of solving issues for themselves that does not involve you or siblings too.
It's so bad that on my mom's birthday, when she called, I called her, but she didn't pick up. Then when she called me, I couldn't pick up because I was at work. And that was my mom's birthday. I couldn't pick up my phone on my mom's birthday
Yeah,
because I was working.
yeah,
So that's how bad it is. Like, there are times where, like, you can't just, like, not because you are being mean, but, like, you are at work, a million things are going, like, at the same time. Your
Yeah.
boss is on your head, like, you are trying to figure out something, and you see your mom, like, you see like, a call from Nigeria, you be like, you have to do that now. Because they're trying to focus on something more important. So,
but let's say you work in a bank in Nigeria that they don't allow you have access to your phone, and your parents call you while you're at work. Usually, if you just get off work like at 5, it's also 5 in Nigeria too. It's 5 where they are. You can just call them 5 p.m. Everybody has the same time zone.
Yeah.
So
Because at the same time.
exactly. So with David's point about his mom calling him back, maybe by the time he tries to call her back, it's already midnight in Nigeria and they are asleep.
Yeah.
So-
If you have not experienced time difference before, you will do me a favor, right? And because when you're moving somewhere new, I think you should consider the time difference and how it's going to affect your communication. And then for those who you can discuss with, tell them that the times will change, but you try your best to be there for them. And hopefully they do understand that you try your best to be there for them too. So
Yeah.
set a kind of a baseline. For those who you might not be able to have the chance to talk to, first of all, from my knowledge, if you travel abroad without even telling some of your friends, that's a
Yeah.
no-brainer for them.
Yeah, they'll completely
Yep.
cut contact and communication with you. They'll be like, "Oh, you're hiding it. You were hiding it."
No problem.
Yeah.
Me too. Block you.
When do we come to an understanding that it's not necessarily that everybody has to announce that they're traveling?
Like, if you're watching this, like in the last episode where I talked about like how I got my visa and how short the time was between when I got the visa and when I had to get everything in order and move to the US. Like, in the middle of that, I'm not gonna have time to start thinking of who I haven't called and told yet that I'm leaving. That is like unrealistic to do because you're caught up in the moment. You have a lot going on, and then you just have to see the process off. And even the time difference that we're talking about, we are in New England, which is the Northeast. Imagine people who live in LA. The time difference is like 9, 10 hours from Nigeria.
Yeah.
You can imagine that is a wide time difference to have. So these are some of the things that some of the immigrant experience that you wouldn't consider until it happens to you, and then you'll be like, oh, maybe
Yeah.
that's why my uncle Kunle that left 20 years ago wasn't picking
True.
my calls when
True.
I was trying to
True.
reach him.
Or when you see like stories of people coming back after like 10, 15 years.
Yeah,
Why? So you're telling me they come and see his parents for 15 years?
yeah,
What? Me that I'm talking, I've not been to Nigeria for like how many years now?
Yeah.
6 years.
It's
yeah,
so easy to
Time flies. So I don't
to
know people like that
to
typically because
condemn a
yeah,
situation that
yeah.
you
Yeah.
You
are
have
not
not
in.
been in.
It's like watching a boxer fight and be like, they just knock him out. Like,
Yeah,
yo, you've not been in a boxing ring before. You've not worn gloves. You've
yeah.
not trained as a
yeah,
boxer.
and if Vinicius makes sure they go to shot. Vinicius.
I mean, but that is something you expect from a fan, right? Fans are just people that are there to enjoy. They don't know what it takes to be there, right?
And it's key to take a lesson from that. That everything we do, if you migrate, you have fans, two set of fans. It's like you have the away and you have the home fans. The home fans are the ones that okay, they probably know your schedule. You traveled, hey, they will cheer you up. The away fans are like they don't give a damn, and they probably want to see how you go against all odds abroad. This one don't go. We don't lost now.
Yeah.
Like it's not doing much. So
Just
always,
chipping in. Hala Madrid. Madrid for life. Oh my
yeah,
God, I'm a
and
die-hard Madrid
and
fan.
and also like to find words to define any kind of relationship is kind of impossible. You can't use one word. And if you look at dynamics of relationship, because dynamics is like, when something will definitely change.
Yeah, it's
There
changing.
are some relationships that are like cohabitable relationship, right?
Yeah.
Because you cohabit with them. They are codependent relationship, which is probably the one you have with your parents. Like you depend on them, not just financially, emotional
Yeah.
support, um, um, like changing your commitment as well. So the commitment to every relationship is not the same, but there should be a level of commitment, a commitment statement that I will be there,
Yeah.
maybe not as regular or not as much. So as an immigrant moving anywhere, whether you are moving back to Nigeria, whether you're moving from Nigeria to the US, I think it's
Yeah.
important to
Yeah.
maintain and
Non-romantic
cherish
relationships, right?
non-romantic
Yeah.
relationships. Yeah.
So um, another thing that I wanted to discuss is the identity versus ambition. So the topic today is maintaining non-romantic relationships as an immigrant in the US or probably any other country that has a different time zone from your original country. So there's something that I wanted to address. Like, a concept that I've been thinking about in my head, the idea of identity versus ambition. So, let's say you have an ambition to leave Nigeria and come to America to chase the American dream, right? So that is your ambition. But when you come to America, for example, if you are somebody that likes to wear, like you are from northern Nigeria, and every Friday is Juma Friday, and you like to wear native attire on Fridays to work, you can't do that anymore once you move to the US because, like, it's no longer part of the culture here. And to me, I've always wondered about it, like, if you stop dressing the way you usually dress on Fridays because you find yourself in a new environment, are you losing part of your identity as a person, or are you evolving? So that is something that I've always wondered. Like, there are certain things that we do, even like in Nigeria. Like, normally Nigerian families on Sundays, they all dress up in the morning, they go to church for most of the day. But that is not necessary in the US. Most of the Christian families that have been around on Sundays, they usually just chill and stay indoors. So is that part of an identity loss? Are you losing part of your identity because of your ambition that you moved to the US to chase the American dream? Or is that just a natural evolution?
I think it's just adaptation.
Adaptation, in my opinion, because if you move to a new place, they have their own set of culture and ideas. So you have to adapt to what's you have to adapt to your host country in a way. I don't think it's you're losing any part because you could go back to your country now and you could like do the same thing you were doing like before you left. Like to me, I don't see it as a big deal. I just see it as
I think it's kind of like a habit, right? If you dress a certain way every Friday and then you stop, by the time you go back to your country, I don't think it's something you can pick up like just like that.
I think your environment dictates that. If
And
you see your friends like dressing the same way, like if you want to dress the same way, and you want to be like, oh okay, let's dress, let's go out.
and that's just like for dress code, like dressing habits. Like for example, too in Nigeria, usually like 7 p.m., 8 p.m., you tend to go out for a stroll to buy suya, or you buy shawarma, or you just buy some like normal like evening snack. But in the US, you don't have that. There's no suya and there's no shawarma waiting for you somewhere. And I've always thought about that as also like a person's identity. Like, excuse me, routine is part of identity. Like some people, they wake up in the morning and they pray before they do anything. That is part of their identity. And if they were to find themselves in a different scenario or a different environment that they are not able to pray when they wake up in the morning, it feels like a loss of identity in some way. So that is something that I've always wondered in my head. As
Well, I think your identity also helps you to recognize the dynamics of change and also accept or roll with the change. So, we had a conversation earlier before the podcast started where we talked about have you ever been, like David, have you been in a situation where you're with your family, right? And then you see a family, you don't know anything about them. Let's say maybe during your secondary school, visiting hours or visiting or in church or anywhere. And you just see that the way they communicate or maybe the way anyway, people communicate differently in public and at home, how they communicate at home. But for most of the time, sometimes it's the same. And you just see the way they communicate and you be like, wow, this is not how I communicate with my parents, right?
Yeah, a lot of times, yeah.
So I feel the way you communicate with those people who you have no relationship with, it builds the kind of identity you have. Sometimes it's confidence in yourself. It's confidence with communicating with other people. Sometimes it could be low confidence. It could be self-esteem issues. So the nature or the identity of the people you have close non-romantic relationship with also reflects most of the time your own identity. And because your identity is your characteristics, your values, and probably everything that completes what your principle of life is, it shows in your reaction to changes.
yeah,
So if you pray every day 5 times and you come to America where there's no, you start to feel some certain.
yeah, that makes sense.
You start
That
to feel
makes
like,
sense.
man, this society is not for
Yeah.
us. And let's look at, for example, Nigeria as a demograph of people who migrate. I feel the identity of certain cultures in Nigeria do not kind of like emphasize on migration because the society there are not too big on, or even though they have people who have migrated a lot, they're not as much as a certain part, right? So like you come from a family where you have cousins who have been in America before. It's different from when you come from a family where nobody has been to America before, and that's you know, starting that kind of foundation on how you should be as a person coming from that part. So it depends on where
Yeah.
you are coming from, for the
Yeah.
most part. For people who are exposed already, who have family here, or you know, I mean, I don't like to call names, but compare like OBU now, with the orientation to maybe another person who has not been abroad before. The way the identity is and the way they will perceive changes when they migrate might be different.
Yeah, I mean, understandably, like, because we are all different individuals, the way we process change is obviously going to be different. But I just thought that was an interesting thing to throw
Yeah,
out there
it
as,
is.
like, identity versus ambition. Because we are equator people. Like, once you move here, too, you also have to adapt to, like, a new type of cold. Usually, the cold we have in Nigeria is Hamatan, and it lasts, like, what, 1, 2 months? No, 1 month tops. 1 month.
Well,
And then you come here is like winter.
the
And then the
Harmattan is
winter
back
is
now, though.
like, oh my God. You have to put on special type of jackets. You have to find ways to insulate yourself, otherwise you freeze. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting topic. And also, like, not just in terms of like immigration, also like career wise. Like, for example, if you notice, all doctors almost write the same way when they prescribe medication. Like, they have terrible writing. But, like, if you check, most of them didn't start writing like that when they were like kids, or even like when they were growing up as teenagers. But as they progress and they lean more and more into their profession, they all sort of like converge into a type of behavior. So that has always been interesting. Like, for example, if in becoming a doctor, like, in a simplistic way, changing your handwriting per se, is that you losing part of your previous identity and forming a new one, or is that you evolving? Like, things like that. Like, they are always like concepts that I try to imagine in my head and think of how to rationalize it. Sometimes even CEOs too. Like, you see, all CEOs don't have the same temperament, but usually, as soon as they become CEOs, they start to have similar characteristics, like in the way they dress, the way they carry themselves. You know, the more ambitious you are, the more likely your identity is going to change at some point down the line. So,
Yeah. And ambition comes with two things.
yeah,
It's competition and ruthlessness.
yeah,
Sometimes you have to be ruthless in your pursuit. So,
yeah,
well, in relation to what we're talking about, identity, ambition, in relation to how it affects, right, our communication with those we have non-romantic relationship with.
yeah,
And I mean, in turn, I think we're also touching even the romantic part of it,
yeah,
because if you think about how you treat your loved ones that you claim, is probably the same or more how you treat somebody who you have a romantic relationship with.
yeah,
So, um, if you have ways of improving yourself in this part, it's going to also affect other parts. So your relationship with yourself, it's going to help your relationship with your non-romantic
yeah.
partners.
There was a concept we are talking about that you talked about. I think you called it what, make
Oh, the meat.
meat concept.
The meat concept. So the meat, like M.E.A.T,
Okay.
is a concept where you have a formula of meat you give everyone. So like Mustapha, did some fried meat and he gave everyone like one, right? And if you think about it in a relationship spectrum, you have to give everybody some meat every day, every
Yeah.
week. So your meat is your money, your energy, your attention, and your time. Like there is no way you have a relationship with someone and those things are not involved.
Yeah.
One can be missing, but in some way it still comes in place. Like
Yeah.
maybe you say money, oh, I don't have to give anybody money, but there are certain times where you see, okay, let's say your sibling is getting married now. Wouldn't you contribute some money?
No,
In some
it's
certain,
not even necessarily money. Like, even when you buy gifts, It might not be directly
Yeah, not direct.
money,
Yeah, that's what I'm
cash,
saying.
but
Like
for some, at least
you're
at
going
some
to
point,
contribute.
yeah, something
Yeah,
that is financial,
yeah.
that has a financial incentive in it.
They depend on your attention. They crave for it.
Yeah.
It's important to them, to you as well. And then your time. And we spoke about it earlier. We were like, yo, everything is all about time. Like
Yeah.
basically time management.
Yeah, because I was talking to Duniya about this. I was like, let's say you give 1 hour to your significant other every weekend. Are you going to give that same 1 hour to your parents, one each, 1 hour to your siblings, one each, 1 hour to your friends, one each? At some point, you're going to be overwhelmed with the amount of hours you're giving out to people. I mean, how many hours are you going to have left for yourself? So it's that time issue is like something that we all struggle as adults. Like even when I look at my parents as a kid back then, I used to think they have it all figured out. And sometimes as I'm growing up, I'm hearing that maybe there are some people that my dad doesn't contact as often as he needs to, or there are people that my mom doesn't contact as often as she needs to. And I realized that as you become an adult, it's very difficult to maintain relationships like at an even level.
Yeah, you're right. And sometimes I think is how much time they commit to contacting them.
Yes.
Like we're talking about the written letters, right?
Yeah.
Somebody will weigh their relationship with you, how many letters you've written to them in a year.
Yeah.
Oh, we wrote to each other 3 times.
Yeah.
Oh, that we're close.
Yeah.
Oh, you only wrote to me once. Wow, we're not that close. So,
And another thing that always gets on my nerves is like if I come out of my way to communicate with somebody and the first thing they tell me is, you just forget me or you just forgot me. That thing gets on it irritates me. I'm like, I'm the one that contacted you, and for some reason you find a way to chip in that I forgot you. Like, we all have lives, we all have busy lives, but at some point in time, like you have to understand that everybody, especially in your 20s and your 30s, you are pursuing your dreams. You're trying to get comfortable. At least, to my understanding, most men reach their financial independence like in their 40s. So for your 20s and your 30s, you're hustling. And maybe you had a relationship with people when you were teenagers. But that relationship cannot remain that way for the rest of our lives because we all have commitments and things that we need to pursue and chase. So to me, it's always ridiculous when people just sit on a high horse and say, you forgot me. Sometimes I'm like, you're damn right I forgot you. Now what are you going to do about that?
So let me say, in terms of percentage, right? Like David, let me ask David, for example. Since when you left Nigeria, how many percent in total of 100% of your friends that you still have a healthy relationship with in terms of that?
Only one person out of all my friends. I only talk to one of them.
And
the odds are always so low. Like the percentage is always so low. It's so difficult to maintain those relationships.
It goes from like 100 to like to nothing.
Sometimes it doesn't even crack 10%. Like if you have 10% communication with those people you're friends with back in Nigeria, like you're doing well. Usually, like it's almost like 1%.
Usually, I do see it like people are different, right? So we have people who are like actively maybe social on social media where they are providing maybe some service or maybe they're doing something that people always want to keep in touch with them.
Yeah.
Maybe they ship things, so they are always out there. Oh, I ship this thing. So people always contact them.
Yeah.
But those are not necessarily, those are like beneficial relationship where they want to find out some information. That's why they want to talk to you. But let's say you are not like a social person. You don't post every day.
Yeah.
Because some people actually base your existence because you are updating your IG
how frequent you post things.
So if you're not frequent, they just feel like, oh, nothing's going on for you.
Yeah.
And then, they just...
Yeah.
Now, those are people who were like your friends, probably because in school.
Yeah.
You see each other, you go to work. And because I always feel like at this intersection, right, we are trying to help everyone, those migrating and those not actually migrating as
those
well.
ones remaining behind, right?
Yeah, if you have someone who has migrated to another country and there's a time difference, I think you should allow them a benefit of doubt that they will
Exactly.
change in the way they communicate with you.
Exactly.
And also, vice versa. If you travel, you need to understand that the way the people you communicate back home with, they might change. And that change is all part of the adjustment. It's all part of you finding a middle ground and also not trying to make situations worse. So
Yeah.
it's always good to be in the present and try to work towards a better future, no matter how bad the communication is. And I was talking to Mustapha, I was like, yo, you do know we do have like relationship with people that probably went sour.
Yeah.
And if we have a platform where we're talking about a relationship, someone could be like, oh, nah.
Yeah, someone in the comments can be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this guy didn't come.
We don't have a good
He left
relationship.
me. He
We
did
don't
this. He did that."
Look,
I mean,
we are just here to talk about experiences
yeah,
and, say things that will help someone who is just thinking about how to go about this whole I'm traveling to Canada tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen. Calm down. Um, do more research on yourself. Talk to your family more now that you have the opportunity. Enjoy your time with them. And then when you move, you'll be able to have healthy communications.
yeah. And just like the way David alluded, like the best way to go about communicating with people is to have a schedule. Like always put that in your calendar. Otherwise, like it's almost impossible to
Yeah.
follow up. Like
Yep.
it's
Yep.
almost impossible to remember to follow up with anybody. Like especially when you are caught up in the matrix and you're caught up with the pursuit.
Yeah, I like that word.
Yeah, the matrix. Like yeah, in the matrix, you are
Matrix
trying to
is
figure
real.
out your position or your role in this society. Like for example, now I'm a scientist. I work for a biotech company. I'm not going to mention their name because I'm not doing free promo. I work for a biotech company. I work as a scientist. I work 12 hours, like most times 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. depending on how long or because I have a flexible schedule. But more often than not, I take long hours because I have lots of responsibilities. I'm a married man too, so it will be difficult to maintain non-romantic relationships because I have a lot on my plate.
Yeah.
And most people won't understand that. They will just jump into conclusions that you're this, you're that. It's always so easy to paint a narrative of somebody in your head.
Fact. When you're not in their shoes, right?
Yeah, and another thing is that I've realized that the world doesn't owe anybody understanding. So I don't beat myself up over anything anymore. Like before, like if somebody says something about me that isn't true, it bothers me. But now I'm like, well, bro, you're entitled to your opinion. I think it comes with maturity, like
True.
realizing that there are certain things that you can't control.
True.
You'll do your
Maturity.
best, but
Yeah, maturity is it's also another stage of identity.
yeah,
It's another stage of identity, and I think responsibilities help you to gain like awareness of, oh my God, I'm responsible for all these things.
yeah,
Then I'm mature enough to just be like, you know
Yeah.
what, this relationship is
Exactly.
not working.
exactly.
It's not working. So
I was having a conversation with who was I having it? Yeah, my wife. That the people that tend to get into fights, physical fights, are people that are emotional. And most often, like, if you are emotional and you always have an emotional response for everything,
impulse.
you are so impulsive, like, you are not mature enough.
I agree, but disagree. Some people need beating.
This channel does not support violence in any way. Just a disclaimer. But
Some people need beating.
just in the
Some people need to
in
collect,
our African
man.
context,
You need to
yes,
collect.
sometimes you need to collect some wipes on
you
your
need to
bum bum,
collect, oh.
and then your head will reset.
Yeah. But like for example, if somebody says something like calls me a name, a nasty name in public, the next thing I'm not thinking about how I roll my sleeves or take my jacket off and let's exchange blows. I'm like, what am I gonna gain out of this? At best, I kick your ass, or at worst, you kick my ass.
Okay.
Who is benefiting from this situation now? Like,
Okay. Have you ever been in a situation where you feel like you have a relationship with someone who is your friend, and you feel the moment you are not there with them, you just feel like they can relate to you in a certain way,
Yeah.
different from when you're with them. So as time goes on, you'll be like, seems this person is not really vibing with me because he doesn't see me that much.
Yeah.
So
Another thing that I want to talk about is like conflict. So I think conflict is necessary in relationships, whether romantic or not. Like for example, like there are certain things that, let's say your parents, for example, they do while you were a kid, and they want to continue it as an adult, and you be like, no, that is not going to fly. You can't do that anymore. And then you guys have like an actual altercation about it, and the next time they know better not to do that because they know you're no longer a kid. And the same thing goes with your friendship with people. Like for example, you have like a friend that, let's say, is always late everywhere, for example, and you just keep taking it. At some point, you'll be like, bro, why are you always late everywhere? And you guys have an altercation about it. Then the person knows not to be late every time you guys are going out together. So I think
That's-
conflict is very important in maintaining
Yeah.
non-romantic relationships because it helps set boundaries.
if you look at it, right, the energy, the effort,
Yeah.
because I myself, I have a certain energy I limit to or effort in terms of resolving something, right? So you're trying to resolve something that is not working. Are you going to spend the whole day trying to resolve it? That's your time, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to spend your whole energy? So at the end of the day, you have to apply the meat. You have to you have to apply the meat because
Please repeat what the meat is so for the audiences that are watching.
money, energy,
because
attention, and time.
and time.
And that's what
It is very sus.
exactly.
I
you
like
can add-
that. I'll write that
Why do you
down
like it?
somewhere.
You
I'll
don't
write
like
that. I like it. Meat. Money, energy,
It's the meat.
attention, and
If see,
time.
if your wife is getting the best part of your meat, then you are the best husband.
Okay.
If your parents,
Oh my god!
if
Please don't say that.
no, the meat. I mean, in terms of your money. Look at my guys. After telling you what meat is,
Oh, we are so nasty. Oh my god, we're so
Best part
nasty.
of your meat.
You're so nasty.
wait. If
Oh my
if,
god.
if
that's
your wife
funny.
is benefiting from your money,
Yes.
your energy, your attention, and your time,
Yeah.
you're building the best thing ever, right? Now that's
Yeah.
who you're sharing your life with, right?
I mean, it could be Dumble and Tundra, like meat, as in what you're saying, and actually the real
Well,
meat too.
it depends on it. But even in terms of in a marriage, she has to be the one enjoying the meat,
There you
whichever
go.
meat it is, right?
Exactly. Whatever context the meat applies to, yeah.
What we're saying is that the outcome will be great. It will be great and significant, and the efforts to address problems that arise in non-romantic relationship should not also be, not emphasized, because truly, if it matters to you, you have to put in some effort for it to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And you don't have to depend on the other person to be in fully understanding why, it could be just the way you said, sometimes it's not your fault. You're doing something else,
Yeah.
right? But you have to bring yourself down to be like, just know that, okay, they will feel some kind of way.
Yeah.
You'll be the one to try to make up. When you're trying to make up, because I feel like I've been in this circle where I had to step back and be like, wait, I have so many friends. It's not like all of them are trying to make it up to me.
You're always chasing after them, right?
Not the word chase. I feel like I'm the one trying to meet up with them, like
Okay.
in the middle, because all of them are like, oh, we don't know your time. I'm like, oh, maybe that time you called me, I'm not. And then it goes to everybody. I'm trying to explain why I've not been available. And then because I've been in their shoes, I've been in Nigeria before, they expect that, already you should understand now. You called me, the call ended. No data now.
Yeah.
If somebody calls you here from there and you tell them no data, they'll be like, your battery is dead, and there's light.
Yeah.
So the
Change in society.
the change in
and
society
expectations,
just becomes so from little things.
Yeah,
It broadens
yeah.
to a lot of
Another
things.
thing that, although it's not as significant, I just wanted to touch on is like accent. Like, for example, I remember when I started grad school in 2019, like, we're working on battery storage systems. But the Nigerian way of pronouncing it is battery. Battery. And anytime I say battery, they always just like, huh? What do you mean? Oh, you mean battery? I'm like, oh, okay. At some point, I gave up. I started calling it battery.
Barry, yeah.
And then I got used to calling it battery. And then I remember I put a clip of my presentation on Instagram stories, and people were like, oh, you just went to the America, you just entered America now, your accent's already changing. And there's somebody, there's, I remember one time my friend was bringing an example of, you know this actor in Blood Diamonds
Yeah.
with Leonardo DiCaprio? What's his name again?
What's that?
I remember a friend of mine was telling me that guy has been in the US for like almost 20 years. His accent hasn't changed. I'm like, yo, bro. What are you trying to say? Like,
Depends on what
I'm
you're
forming my accent, or I'm trying to force myself to speak like Americans. But
What kind
the
of
truth,
rubbish is that? How would they
the
say that?
truth is that if you live with people so long, you start to pick up certain things that they do, and not just because you are
need
trying to
to.
be like them,
You
but
need
because
to.
it makes life easier.
Yeah,
Like,
you need
I'm
to.
not going to stand in front of an American and say battery,
Yo.
battery until he understands what I mean. Like, at some point, I'll call
Yo.
it what he understands, so it helps with communication, right?
I think, yeah, you're right. See, this whole idea of accents, right? People think. People are just thinking. They're just speculating. Let me give you an example. Back when I was in secondary school, we traveled, me and my family, opportunity to travel to the UK when school was on session for like 3 weeks to a month. Now, after we came back, can you believe that some of my friends were looking up to me in terms of me changing my accent?
In 3 weeks.
No, this is me thinking about this thing. I'm like, wow, this pressure was tough. You know, they just felt like it was just normal for you to just pick up the accent even without you knowing. Because they've never traveled before. Even me, before I traveled, I felt like maybe 4 weeks was enough for you to just pick it up. But
Man,
my brother,
you have to live with them and
you have to
communicate
live,
with them
communicate
constantly.
Today, like,
So this whole idea, look, if before you travel, right? I think the main idea is this. Just your accent, you should be clear in terms of communicating. And I think in the northeast where we are in New England,
Yeah.
like if you're in school or anywhere where you have an accent, I think people are kind enough to understand that.
Yeah.
You have an accent, they just flow with you.
Yeah.
You know, they don't really stigmatize or make you feel that different. You know.
Yeah.
like you're in America, like everyone has accents.
Yeah.
Like,
Even in America itself, indigenous accent, the Southerners sound different from the people in the
Yeah,
Northeast.
exactly.
The people in
Boston has an accent.
Boston people, they have an accent.
exactly.
So it's like
So that notion that we
I feel like it's because of racism in a way. Like, we feel like, oh, they might not want to like the way we talk might not be nice. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just that complex we have. I don't know. But me, I don't care anymore. If I talk, I repeat myself, I will shout. You will hear me. At least you will hear me when I shout. So,
fun fact though, that I just want to throw in there, like if you are not a native speaker of a language, you can't hear the accent. So for example, like since we can't speak Spanish, like if there's a Spanish speaking person talking, we can't tell what accent they are using.
Yeah.
And just the way Spanish people who can't
can't
speak
even
English
distinguish a
listen to
Mexican
us speak
to
English.
Portuguese.
Yeah, they
you know,
can't.
Just,
They
just
can't
like the way
exactly.
we can say British and American. And
Yeah,
we see the
they won't be
difference.
able to tell. Like so people that don't speak English, they can't tell accents apart. So I think that's a fun fact.
So no pressure on man, no pressure on family members or friends that they don't have accent or whatever it is. I think language is something that is
And even my first experience, like in the US, like they always say we have a thick accent. If you have like an African accent, they always call it a thick accent. I'm like, what? Who made that law that our own accent is thick and your own is light? I don't understand where that viscosity came from. The viscosity equation that ours have to be thick for yours to be light. I don't understand that. So it was always crazy hearing stuff like that.
think that's always been the conflict between the West and the East.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it
crazy.
just feels like if you can speak English, like that's 50% of
And
your intelligence.
The
Like
funny part is, we actually study English in school,
Yeah,
and it's annoying because all these white people, like, their English is never that good. Like, it's
you just have
because
the
I
accent.
did in like I was in when I was doing English comp 101 or something like in college. My professor then, like, I think wrote an essay, and I had the best like essay in the class out of every white. Like, I was like, oh, so you panel that smart. So why since then I
well,
was
it's
like,
not.
you
It's
cannot talk down on me, like,
it
I'm better
cannot
than
be.
you.
That's why it can't be a measure of your intelligence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You understand? Because
like,
somebody does, but I understand. I think what makes people feel like if you have an accent, it gives you more of
yeah,
a
yeah,
grade, a class. They
yeah,
like it because it makes you look intelligent.
yeah.
That's why people will fall for scam.
Packaging.
yeah,
All
packaging.
of that
That's
is
why scam.
packaging.
That's why whatever people who do all these
Yeah, like,
telephone scam exist
yeah,
because fact there are people who have lived in Nigeria all their life and will never maybe leave Nigeria, but they can talk in different accents.
have you seen that video before?
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I
That
think I've
video.
seen that video
They
too.
can
Like,
talk in different accents.
yeah,
So, I mean, what will you say about that? There are people who have never traveled to the UK, but
can speak.
they will give you UK accent.
Yeah,
I mean, the fact that someone's accent changes as soon as they move to America or they move abroad, and then you have to start using it as a way to stigmatize them about them forgetting where they are from or something like that. I think that's ridiculous. I think if you stay somewhere for an extended period of time, you tend to
get
pick
to
up
the way of
things.
life easy.
You tend to pick up things. It's just natural. It's a human experience. It's not somebody trying to form posh. And a little bit of it is like ego, right? The fact that you sit down in your house and think somebody is changing their accent to please you, sitting down in your house. Like, why do you think you are that important that I have to change my accent to please you or to
Okay,
form for you?
even if I want
That's
to-
crazy.
Even if I want to change my accent, is it your business? I want to change it.
Exactly.
What's wrong with you?
Is a false
Yeah.
sense of importance.
Let me
I
change
think
it.
it's ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So, but these are some of the things that you experience when you immigrate, right? And these are some of the notions that people have about you, especially from your non-romantic relationships. Once you start to sound different, some people, I don't know, they develop inferiority complex and they feel like, oh, you're trying to put them down in some way. But, everybody has their
Yeah,
own way
that's-
or their understanding on how they
Yeah.
experience life. So,
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. How the experience happens. Some people have experiences that the moment they leave, for example, the country, they don't even care about so much friends. They just care about their family. Some
exactly.
people are so focus oriented like that.
But the crazy thing is that I just want to chip in for maintaining non-romantic relationships is that, for example, now you've been in the US for a while, you travel back to Nigeria. What if your family is not available to come pick you from the airport? You are not maintaining any non-romantic relationship with any of your friends that can be like, oh, buddy, I'm in the airport. I beg, please, can you come pick me up?
Yeah.
Because you have failed to maintain those relationships, you put yourself in a vulnerable situation because you are depending on now a stranger to take you to your house. And a lot of things could happen. You could get robbed, you could get kidnapped. A lot of things could happen. I remember the last time I went to Nigeria, after I was supposed to go to Abuja. My pre-wedding photo shoot supposed to go for that, and I flew from Lagos. The flight was delayed. I landed in Abuja at night, maybe like 8 p.m. It was my friends that come pick me up, the ones that I maintained my relationship with, that I was always calling and communicating with. They came to pick me up and they took me to where I needed to go. But if I had not done that, I would have been stranded and vulnerable at night in Abuja with all my loan and everything. Like, it would have been
So you see how important that can be.
it's important, very important to maintain non-romantic relationships.
Yeah,
Very, very
I
important.
don't know how people. I don't know. Some people come here and they just vamoose, spend a lot of years here,
Yeah.
dissolve relationship with people, and then one day all of a sudden they want to visit Nigeria.
Yeah.
Um, and genuinely, like even people they do cut off will be happy for the fact that they're back and they
Yeah.
want to extend their greetings to them, But I've not been in that shoe. How many people can you galvanize back with a sudden comeback? Sometimes it doesn't really just work that way.
Yeah.
So
Because a lot of people have this notion that once they come to America, they are never going back to Nigeria. But guess what? You're not going to be a youth forever. You're going to get old. And if you have your kids here, when you're older and they want to dump you in like a care home, you would much rather prefer to go back to Nigeria. Yeah. And because you have severed all your relationships, there's nobody to cater for you if you go back home.
Something we're going to talk about more further.
Yeah.
When we get into this immigration conversation.
Yeah.
Because I've thought about it so deeply today. I said, why did I, before coming, there are two things I did preparing to come to America. Statement of purpose and a personal statement.
Yeah.
Now, to be honest with you, I did not see or feel how important that was till I thought about it, until I went back to read those essays I wrote at that time. Now, I wrote the essay then based on the knowledge
that you had, right?
that I had, and based on the plans and goals I wanted to achieve. They were plainly stated in that paper. So those are very important to remind you of where you're going to as an immigrant in terms of your identity, your ambition. For example, when you go to the embassy, they ask you, after your studies, they usually ask you, what do you intend to do?
Yeah.
And you just be like, I intend to return. Everybody's intending to return.
Yeah, that is always your intention, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's not, some people, it might not be genuine, but that is what everybody goes with, right?
Whatever the intention is, you have to make sure that you have it written down somewhere. And it should serve as a reminder for you in terms of you knowing your identity, your ambition, because trust me, we are all in that process of integrating into the society. Yeah. It's like the moment you migrate, right? It's like every day. Okay, let me say migration is like there's no destination. Let me say it like that. Even though you get to your destination, right? You are slowly integrating into that society.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
Right? You're trying to gain acceptance by being a permanent resident, let's say for example, first, and then you become a citizen, and then you integrate, and then you have a family, you reproduce, you have kids, and you still have the responsibility as an immigrant to integrate, to help them, right?
Yeah. And also to pass down some of your identity
exactly.
to them.
So your identity, your ambition transfers down kids, to your next generation. Yeah. So it's like from the moment you migrate, whether by yourself or not, I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful of the to the African American community, but it feels like even those who were brought here as slaves, right? It still feels like up to date. They are still trying to settle in.
Careful now.
No.
Dangerous waters.
No.
Let him explain what he's
No, I'm just playing.
But I'm just saying it's a continuous process. Because if you, like me, have it in your mind that once you just come to America, you're settled, it can be a very dangerous thought. Yeah. Because that will kind of make you feel like maybe everything will come easily, or because you've just made the journey or the trip that's like a very important part of it. But if you see it as a way of every day I will adjust and I will settle, I feel it will help you navigate more.
That's why they call it the American dream, because it's something you keep chasing, right?
It's a dream.
A lot of people do not achieve their so-called American dream until they die. So,
yeah.
At work, I was reading a book, and the author of the book was talking about the American dream being buying a house, and he alluded to the fact that the American dream means different things to different people.
I
Some people
agree.
is buying a house.
I agree.
To some people, it's establishing a business. To some
Yeah.
people, it's starting a family. So everybody has their own iteration of what an American dream is. And for some other people, it's being the top dog in in their
Yeah.
profession. So, and I thought that was a very interesting perspective because when you say the word American dream, there's an image that comes to your head, but it's not the same image that comes to, let's say, Duniya's head or David's head because
Yeah.
everybody has their own iteration of what the American dream is.
And what can we say to a specific age group that migrate, let's say 25 below, let's say between the age of 18 to the age of 25, migrating from, let's say, Nigeria or wherever in Africa to the US to study? Because I feel that's a very unique
Yeah, it's a unique path.
part
Right?
for us, right? There are other parts. There are other people that, by extension of privilege,
Yeah.
they just move. Now, I feel those people will have slightly a different experience.
Yeah,
Do we
different
agree?
way. Yeah, it's very
So,
even like genders too. Like
yeah,
for
gender,
men, it's
yeah,
different
yeah,
between men and women.
yeah.
Like they
It's
have
also
different
important that
experiences.
we also mention that.
Yeah,
We're here to talk about everyone in particular, but we also understand that
yeah, some nuances.
there are some nuances
Yeah.
in terms of a difference in gender, in difference of in the way or the path you migrated to a certain place. But if you're between like 18 to 25 and you're done with your undergrad or you're coming for undergrad and doing your masters, that period is a transitional period for you, where you have to maintain a non romantic relationship,
Exactly.
where you have to work with your identity and your ambition. It never stops. And then when you have to like apply the notion, the formula we talked about, like the meat.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice in general for somebody who is like at that stage about to make that journey?
The first thing I would say is that it's a very lonely journey. Like a lot of times, there's a certain level of loneliness that you will experience. That a lot of times it's your non-romantic relationships that keep you going. And if you are in a romantic relationship, you can unknowingly transfer that to the person. That is a heavy burden to place on your romantic partner. A period where you are experiencing like loneliness. There are certain times when I was starting that. Sometimes I talk to my mom, she tells me some stuff, I feel better. Sometimes I talk to my dad, he tells me some things, I feel better. Like I get different kind of motivation from different people at different points in my life that keeps me going.
So you get to seek closure,
Yeah.
from people.
So always
Yeah.
try as much as possible to maintain your non-romantic relationship because it's going to keep you from feeling isolated. And even when you are alone, it feels like you are going on a collective journey because your family is also involved, your siblings are involved, and anytime you're talking to them, you're discussing some of your experiences. Because to me, I believe if you let something out that is in your chest, you feel a lot lighter as opposed to just keeping it in. So if you have somebody you talk to every now and then when you're feeling down or you're experiencing a level of like low energy or low momentum, just having that avenue to express it and get it out of your chest, I think is very good. And more often than not, you get that from your non-romantic relationships. Because sometimes, like as a man, there might be some things you are facing, you don't want your wife to know about it, you don't want your girlfriend to know about it because like it has to do with your image. And I don't know, everybody processes things differently. Some people will say that's toxic, but you cannot always run to your partner for solutions, your romantic partner for solutions. Sometimes you have to rely or lean on your non-romantic relationships to help you out of situations.
Okay. All right.
David.
So for like Dave, I think it's more like me asking for certain people because I feel we do have viewers who will be asking certain questions.
Yeah.
For David, you mentioned you had family here, right?
Yeah.
And trust me, some people do not understand what people go through,
Yeah.
especially extended family members. We do have assumptions. Like I think you mentioned you had assumption of how things run here, and your
Yeah.
sister was by the step of the way telling you, "Don't worry, you see. Don't worry, you. Don't worry, you see." So, what was your advice for somebody who has family who is thinking that, "Oh, more because my family there, man, once I enter, this set to that."
No,
Like,
that is not usually the case. Your family, if you have a sister, you're like an uncle here, for example, and you like you come here for school, like you are good to be going to. So like for me, for instance, right, my sister used to work overnight, and I had to be in class 7 a.m. every morning, Monday to Friday, and she would like pick. I would have to go wake her up every morning, and she take me to like school, but like I could say that it was an inconvenient, like it was inconveniencing her, but she still did it. So like they make sacrifices for us, and we should like try as much as possible to make their lives easier. It doesn't have to be money wise. It doesn't have to be like.
yeah,
It could be like, oh, before like they come back from work, like, oh, you cook for them, like you make like everything, like you make their lives easier, so like they won't feel like they're
yeah,
helping you and you're not doing anything to help them.
yeah,
Like it took me a while to realize that. Like it took me a while because
yeah.
I'm a boy, like,
It's
and my mom spoiled me. So like when I came here, like I'm like, oh, what do you? I'm like, I can't be doing all these things. Like,
yeah,
but
cooking. You mentioned something about cooking, like which is very important and another topic for another
Yeah.
day because
Because cooking is a life skill. It's not a gender-based
yeah,
role. It's a life
yeah.
skill.
Back home is like, oh, you be boy, you dey cook. You know, like most of the like, I'm just saying, like for the kind of for the class I grew in and how my family was set, there was no any emphasis on, there's no society emphasis that I say, man, you need to learn how to cook because you're going to get married and your woman should be, that orientation.
Yeah.
So it's part of our identity as well,
Yeah.
where we have certain orientation that might
Yeah.
backfire on us.
Exactly. Backfire terribly on you.
You know.
Oh my God.
So it's
but
if you don't know how to cook, go and soak gari first. So know how to soak gari because if you're like I did US, I know go soak gari. I mean it's a personal choice, but as Mustapha said, when loneliness hits you sometimes, you just want maybe pound yam or whatever your favorite food
Yeah.
is to just make you feel like safe, you're
Yeah.
at home. And as well, because we are talking about students, the community, the kind of community you get engaged
Yeah.
with, as you transition as a newly immigrant also helps. You can have conversations with people to see how they try to communicate to their families, and then you
Yeah.
can share ideas and have tips and tag along with people who are also in that same group who want to maintain and keep non-romantic relationship.
Yeah, and let me just chip this in while you're planning to wrap up. Not every advice you receive as a new immigrant is good advice. It's always good to cross-reference what anybody tells you with somebody else and decide what the best course of action is.
example
'Cause-
one, your first Thanksgiving, make sure you go to a black household. Very important. Very, very important. I mistakenly went to.
Yo, we
Make
have to
sure
talk
it's
about that.
Oh my God, that's
Holidays in the
something we're gonna talk about. Like,
Holidays in the US, yeah, very important. Your
Leave a
birthday,
comment.
your Thanksgiving,
leave
whatever.
a comment in the comment section if you want us to talk about like Thanksgiving and experiences with Thanksgiving or
have
like
plenty
holidays in general. Just let us know in the comment section and we
I
can
have
work
to
something
for
out.
that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, but I mean, having family here, like it helps you. Like it's let me rephrase. Having a family here, it puts you a step upwards. Like you don't have to like figure out stuff. Like I remember when he came, like he didn't like looking for an apartment. Like it was very hard for him to find an apartment.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
like,
was difficult.
my style was really yes. So like I didn't have any issues. I just came in. I had my own room. Everything was all set. Like it was smoother for me. And like she like she was kind of guiding me anyway because I didn't know anything here. Like,
Yeah,
like, oh,
it's
wear
different.
this clothes, don't wear this,
It's
wear this,
different.
buy this, like, and with time, like, I was able to like, start making my own decisions myself.
Yeah.
So,
And you know how funny that is. Just looking at our experience, right? It gives you it lays a foundation for you on perspective of money.
Yeah.
Like when I came in first, I had to like burn some cash to make sure I was winter ready.
Oh my God.
It wasn't an option. Like
Yeah,
if
you
you
have
don't
to
do
do
it, like you just
Yeah.
and I was
get the
lucky
right
because-
shoe,
yeah.
get the right wear. Like
Yeah.
everything I brought was like all summer wear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a necessity. But if you have somebody who knows where to get them as well, imagine
Yeah.
when I
That
came,
is-
they took us to a certain mall.
That
when
is
there's
so important.
Burlington, Walmart,
Yeah,
where you can get like some things instead of you buying maybe a sock
Yeah,
for $15.
that is
in
so
Walmart, you
important.
get it for $2. So
I remember, like, even when I just met David, then, like, I was just fresh off the boat. I didn't know a lot of stuff, and I wanted to buy like a new MacBook. It was David that drove me to New Hampshire in Nashua to get my computer, because in New Hampshire you don't pay sales tax, but because if I had not established relationship with David and like maintained it over a course of time, even though it was right here in the US, but it's a non-romantic relationship, I would have not even known about something like that happening. I would have looked for someone in Massachusetts to buy my computer and probably
Yes,
paid
yes.
extra money on it.
Yes,
So-
that information I told you, my start told me that information.
Exactly.
So-
And I told my dad that too. So you see the information like keeps going, like it keeps circling and it keeps like growing.
well, very informational, educative sessions of us talking about non-romantic relationships. They're very healthy. They are very helpful. They will help you with your everyday life. It's very important because when we wake up every day, our device is our phone. They connect us to people. Who are those people?
Yeah.
Apart from whoever you claim to have a romantic relationship with, your phone connects you to everyone and even to yourself, because most of these days I say your phone is probably a reflection of who you are, right?
Yeah.
You go through someone's browsing history, you probably know how productive they are, what they are into.
Your phone is an
everything.
extension of you.
Exactly.
It's like a limb.
So
It's like an additional limb because you rely heavily on it.
it's a mirror.
Yeah.
Your pictures, your memories, your
Yeah.
brain is right there. Like,
Yeah.
so it's very important to have that healthy relationship, so that, because most of the time you spend on your phone it's you either building or tearing down some relationship
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So watch out for more and more productive and educative experiences and lessons, and when you have the opportunity, from +1 to 2, 3, 4, and then we'll see you next week.
Please like, leave a comment, subscribe. It means a lot. It helps the community and the podcast grow,
It helps the algorithm.
and it helps the algorithm as well. So if we see that you like the content we're putting out, it's going to encourage us to make more, and it's going to encourage us to invite guests to expand on a lot of the topics that we discuss. So please like, comment, leave,
Undiluted.
and exactly. So
This is undiluted, unscripted.
this is the first of
Real.
its kind. I know you've heard that a lot of times, but yeah, this is really the first of its
Yeah.
kind. So please like, leave a comment, and subscribe. And we'll catch you on the next episode. And definitely we'll have something exciting to talk about. So see you guys in episode 3. Peace out.
Shanjima.
Bye.